Most people don't understand quiet people. They see someone who doesn't interrupt, doesn't dominate a conversation, doesn't fight for attention, and instantly assume weakness. They call them shy, passive, insecure, fragile, not built for the real world. But what if the quiet ones aren't weak at all? What if their silence isn't a lack of strength, but a sign of a deeper, rarer kind of power? Because here's the truth nobody says out loud. Quiet people make other people uncomfortable. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but because silence forces others to confront themselves. Loud people rely on noise to feel important. Quiet people don't need that. And that alone shifts the balance of power. Without anyone noticing, you see, the strongest people in the room are usually the ones who don't need to prove anything. Their strength isn't loud. It's not aggressive. It's not flashy. It's calm, steady, controlled. And that kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need recognition, is exactly what quiet people possess. So if you've ever felt misunderstood because you're quiet, if you've ever been told you're too reserved or too serious, if you've ever wondered why people underestimate you at first but suddenly respect you later, this video will uncover the truth. Because quiet people aren't weak. There's something far more powerful, far more rare and far more misunderstood. Let's talk about what you really are. Quiet strength is invisible until it isn't. Quiet people have a unique kind of presence. The kind that doesn't demand attention, but naturally commands it. Not because they try, but because they don't try at all. While the world rewards loud personalities, something interesting happens when a quiet person enters a room. They don't need to dominate conversations. They don't need to be the center of attention. They don't need validation. Instead, they carry a calmness that creates contrast. People feel it without realizing why. This is the first hidden strength, quiet confidence. It's different from loud confidence. Loud confidence is external. It's performance-based, depending on reactions. Applause, recognition. Quiet confidence is internal. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't ask for approval, and that's what makes it powerful. People confuse stillness with weakness. But the truth is that staying still in a chaotic world is one of the hardest things a person can do. It requires emotional control, mental clarity, and self-awareness, qualities most people don't develop because they're too busy trying to look strong. Instead of learning how to be strong, quiet people possess an inner stability that others lack. They don't lash out. They don't overreact. They don't crumble at the smallest inconvenience. Instead, they process, analyze, observe, reflect, all before taking action. And that's the second hidden strength, strategic thinking. While loud people jump into situations impulsively, quiet people watch everything unfold in silence. And silence is information. They pick up details others miss. They notice patterns, they catch inconsistencies. They read people like open books. Even when those people think they're being mysterious, a quiet person often knows more than they ever say. And that's exactly why they're perceived as unpredictable, mysterious, and ironically intimidating. Because nothing is scarier to a loud person than someone who sees everything and says nothing. Most people don't understand quiet people. They look at someone who doesn't interrupt, who doesn't raise their voice, who doesn't fight for attention, and immediately assume something is wrong. They label quiet individuals as shy, insecure, passive, or simply too fragile to handle the intensity of the world. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if quiet people aren't weak at all, but instead carry a rare form of strength that most people never learn to recognize? The reality is that silence makes others uncomfortable. Not because there's anything wrong with being quiet, but because silence forces people to confront themselves. Loud people often rely on noise to feel significant. They use volume as a shield, a mask, a decoration of presence. Quiet people don't need that. They don't chase attention or demand validation. And this alone disrupts others' expectations. The strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. In fact, the loudest person is often the most insecure. Real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need recognition. It simply exists steady and unshaken. And that kind of strength is exactly what quiet people possess. If you have ever felt misunderstood because you are quiet, if people have told you that you are too reserved, if you wonder why some individuals underestimate you at first, but eventually develop a deep respect for you, then what you are about to hear may finally put everything in perspective. Quiet people are not weak. They are something far more powerful, far more perceptive, and far more misunderstood. And their strengths are not visible on the surface. They unfold silently yet profoundly. Quiet people hold a unique kind of presence. They don't enter a room with a bang. They don't dominate conversations. They don't need to impress anyone. Instead, they bring a calmness that seems subtle at first, but becomes impossible to ignore. While the world celebrates loudness, quiet people create contrast, a grounded presence that feels steady and controlled. People notice it, even though they cannot explain why. This is the beginning of a quiet person's hidden strength, a form of quiet confidence that doesn't rely on external validation. Loud confidence is performative. It requires applause, feedback, and attention to stay alive. Quiet confidence comes from within. It's self-generated, self-contained, and self-sustaining. Quiet people don't need a stage or approval. They rely on their internal compass, their own judgment, and their own consistency. Stillness is not weakness, it is control. Staying calm in a chaotic world takes discipline. Quiet people don't lash out. They don't react impulsively. They don't crumble under stress. Instead, they process, reflect, and make decisions based on understanding rather than emotion. This creates a second source of strength: strategic thinking. While loud people jump into action without considering consequences, quiet people examine situations from every angle. They notice details, they recognize patterns. They understand what others overlook. They see more than they reveal, and they know more than they say. Quiet individuals are often described as hard to read, but the truth is simpler. They're not empty. They're full. The mind of a quiet person is constantly active. They are always analyzing. Observing and absorbing. Their inner world is richer, deeper, and more expansive than they show outwardly. While many people focus on external validation, quiet people focus inward on meaning, depth, and truth. This inner world becomes their sanctuary, a space where thoughts are organized, emotions are processed, and insights are formed. Quiet people understand others deeply because they spend so much time watching quietly. They pick up on micro-expressions, tone changes, inconsistencies, emotional shifts, and hidden motives. They tend to listen more than they speak, and listening gives them information that talking never could as a result. Quiet people develop a form of emotional intelligence that is both subtle and powerful. They notice when someone is lying, even when everyone else believes a lie. They sense when someone is uncomfortable, even when that person is smiling. They understand when someone needs space, reassurance, or silence. They intuitively recognize patterns and behavior, often predicting outcomes before they happen. This level of awareness isn't learned overnight. It's refined through years of attentiveness, and yet this emotional intelligence makes quiet people incredibly independent, because once you understand people deeply, you are no longer controlled by them. Quiet individuals are less affected by others' opinions, less dependent on approval, and far more comfortable standing alone. They don't seek validation from the crowd, because they find validation within themselves. This is why quiet people are difficult to manipulate or influence. Their inner world is stronger than the outer pressure. Quiet individuals navigate life differently, while others chase impulsive desires. Quiet people study situations. They reflect before acting. They look at the long term. Instead of getting caught in the moment, they make fewer mistakes because they move with intention, and this intentionality is another form of power. People often underestimate quiet individuals because quietness is usually misinterpreted. Society teaches that loudness equals confidence and silence equals weakness, but this is a misconception born from insecurity. People don't fear loudness. They understand it. Loudness is predictable. Silence, on the other hand, is unsettling. It makes people wonder, what are they thinking? Why aren't they reacting? Do they know something I don't? Quietness forces others to examine themselves, and insecure people don't like that. So they label quiet individuals incorrectly awkward, antisocial, shy, uninterested, strange. But none of those labels are accurate. They are just projections, reflections of others' discomfort, not reflections of the quiet person's reality. The truth is that quiet people possess forms of strength that are invisible at first glance: emotional control, resilience, patience, clarity, independence, and depth. They manage internal storms without showing them. Externally, they survive challenges silently. And the absence of noise makes others think nothing is happening, but something always is. Time reveals quiet people's strength in ways noise never could. Quiet people also hold a type of power that many overlook. They observe everything. They remember conversations word for word. They notice people's true colors. They see motivations that others hide. They notice who treats people well and who doesn't. They recognize who is genuine and who only pretends to be, because they don't constantly talk. They have more mental space to absorb, and because they absorb so much, they understand people better than people understand themselves. This makes quiet individuals far more strategic than they appear. When something goes wrong, they are often the first to see the root cause. When someone has hidden intentions, they notice immediately. When people pretend, quiet individuals sense it. They're rarely caught off guard because they've already analyzed the situation from angles others ignore. As years pass, the advantages of being observant become clearer. In youth, loud personalities get the spotlight. They receive more attention, praise, and opportunities. But as time goes on, confidence becomes more valuable than charisma. Consistency becomes more powerful than exaggeration. And quiet individuals rise naturally, not because they force their way upward, but because they are steady, thoughtful, and undeniably effective. People underestimate quiet individuals at first, but eventually, those same people become the most surprised. Respect grows slowly but deeply. When someone has true inner strength, the world often confuses silence with weakness, because society is taught to celebrate noise. But the more quiet someone is, the more powerful their actions become. Quiet individuals think before they move. They decide with intention. They react less and act more. Their restraint is not fear, it is mastery. Loud personalities explode under pressure, but quiet people endure. They avoid drama, disengage from manipulation, and walk away when necessary. They don't depend on anyone's approval, which makes them harder to control. They don't beg, chase, or cling, because their sense of worth comes from within. This ability to walk away calmly, confidently, and without hesitation is one of the quiet person's greatest strengths. People who cannot walk away from toxic situations often envy those who can. Quiet individuals also grow silently. They don't announce their plans, brag about their progress, or advertise their goals. They evolve privately, and when they finally reveal what they've been building, it often shocks everyone around them. People wonder how they improve so fast, how they achieve so much, or how they develop such strong skills. The answer is simple. They were working all along, just quietly. This quiet growth is powerful because it is intentional. It's not influenced by trends or external pressure. It's authentic and self-driven. Quiet individuals are patient, and patience produces excellence. And perhaps the most misunderstood truth of all is that quiet people are far more dangerous, in the best way, than people realize. Not dangerous as in harmful, but dangerous as in formidable, capable, strong-willed, and impossible to manipulate. They don't start fights, but they finish them. They don't provoke others, but they stand firm when necessary. They observe everything silently, and when they finally take action, their moves are precise, calculated, and effective. The quietest person in the room is often the one with the deepest insights, the strongest resolve, and the sharpest intuition. Others overlook them. Until the quiet person becomes undeniable, they underestimate them. Until the quiet person surpasses them, they ignore them. Until the quiet person becomes the one everyone turns to for guidance. Quiet people don't seek power, but they grow into it naturally. Their silence protects them, their perception guides them. Their inner world strengthens them, and their calmness stabilizes them. If you are quiet, you might have spent years feeling misunderstood, but your silence is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is not something to fix. Your quietness is a form of mastery, a strength that operates on frequencies most people are too distracted to notice. You understand more than you say, and you see more than you reveal. You think deeply, feel deeply, and grow intentionally. You move through life with a thoughtful intensity that becomes more powerful over time. Quietness is not emptiness. Quietness is depth. Quietness is control. Quietness is strength. Quietness is power. And if you want to understand even more about why quiet people often have few or no close friends, and why that isn't a weakness either, make sure you watch the next video. If you have few or no friends, you probably have these traits. You'll see yourself in ways you never have before.